What's up, guys? This is Matt with Colorado Spirits Collective. I am here at Talnua Distilling in Arvada, Colorado, and I'm joined by Patrick and Meagan Miller.
Yeah,
thanks. For having me.
Yeah, absolutely. This is great. It's actually nice to have people back in the distillery again, finally, after the last year.
After,
so welcome.
Not being able to do nothing.
Nothing. Yeah,
sure.
it's good.
Cool. All right, so you want to tell us about, Patrick, how you got started?
Yeah, so originally, kind of how Talnua got started as kind of the dream got started was Meagan and I were on our honeymoon in 2011. We were in a pub in Galway. The Rugby World Cup was on, and at that time, the games were actually on in New Zealand. So it was only like 8 or 9 a.m. in Ireland, right? It was USA versus Ireland. Ireland was dismantling the US rugby team, unfortunately. So we got talking to the bartender, and in walks the first cases of Redbreast single pot still whiskey. For the first time, they had made it back to the Galway market since the late 50s. And so it was a big deal. The bartender is then telling us this story of single pot still whiskey. It was our first dram, was Redbreast 12. And I think we immediately...
Still our favorite dram.
It's still our favorite. It's our muse for sure. And I think we immediately fell in love with that style of whiskey. Well, going back to Ireland every year, we would come home with all these new expressions that were coming out. Expressions like Green Spot, and then Powers, John's Lane, Middleton, Barry Crockett Legacy, all made at Middleton where Jameson is made. So still, Middleton really saved single pot still whiskey. I mentioned his name, Barry Crockett. The whiskey that's named after him, he was the master distiller that really helped steward the revival of single pot still whiskey. So this love affair then culminated in a 2014 event where it was the last time oil and gas took a nosedive. Meagan and I were both in oil and gas at the time with two separate companies. There was a drop in prices from like $110 a barrel to $40 in 6 months. And it was like, okay, our company, my company, decided that they were going to relocate everybody to Houston and close all their regional offices. So it was like, well, right? Yeah, great timing. Timing's been our friend this whole time. We had this unique opportunity then. One of us was going to be out of a job. She her company had her headquarters here, a great company, and it was like, well, we're either going to be moving and you're going to have to leave, or I'm going to have to leave and we're moving to Houston, right? And so we decided to stay here and really consider tackling this dream of reviving single pot still whiskey here in the United States. And so I actually took a class up at Breckenridge Distillery, a practical distillery startup class that they used to put on a few years back. Really loved it because you never know. I mean, there's like the romantic side of making whiskey, but then there's like opening a distillery and all that goes into that. And so it was kind of like, is it something we really want to try? Really loved that experience up there at Breckenridge. Then was able to get a job because of two openings that happened back to back at Stranahan's. And so I was able to work at Stranahan's, kind of learn the commercial side of whiskey making while then totally legally distilling at the house while we were, it's all right, the statute of limitations.
You gotta start somewhere. Right?
You gotta start somewhere, right? And so literally practicing this old style of Irish whiskey making out of malted and unmalted barley in triple distilling. And so we practiced that for almost 2.5 years, 3 full years of recipes, yeast trials, what cuts we were making on the stills, switching the mash bill up, and really using the Irish whiskey technical file as the guiding light for our production. Since there was no U.S. regulations surrounding the style of whiskey, and still not, we then use the Irish rules and regulations to create this style of whiskey. Then one day I was sitting at the desk at Stranahan's, and a distillery that we're currently sitting in went out of business. And they had some equipment, and their kind of misfortune was our good fortune, because this gentleman walks in who owns the building, who is now our business partner, and we told him, it's like, we have this idea. we didn't have a business plan put together. I mean, this was still like, we have a recipe. I've got stuff you can try.
You got some stuff written down on some napkins.
Oh, it is. It's all napkin. It's all napkin. Actually, we're all on a guess. So it was all in spreadsheets. It was all in spreadsheets. But we were kind of able to show him what we had. His name's Robert Segrist. He's one of the 4 founders, along with my cousin Amy as well, who is our creative director. Robert is responsible for a lot of the build out of what you see behind us, all the piping, all the concrete work, all the tasting room work that has been accomplished here as well. Amy does all of our branding, our packaging, our website, all of our marketing directives, all that. And so we had this little team that we put together, and a handmade pot still before we got these 3 beauties behind us. And we started the first single pot still distillery outside of Ireland. Fully dedicated. It's all we do, even in our gins, which we can talk about in a minute. Our gins are made out of that same single pot still base, malted down, malted barley, triple distilled in copper pot stills. So really kind of an anthology of, like I said, a dream that culminated in an opportunity that we were brave enough to jump on. And I know, right? There's no looking back now. It's been wonderful. So that's kind of the quick OG origin story, I should say. Did I leave anything out? It's good. Okay.
Yeah, pretty much sums it up.
Yeah, good. Absolutely.
And then you guys kind of hinted on it before. You were in the oil and gas industry. What was like your title and prior to all that?
So I was an environmental, regulatory, and government affairs specialist, and then Patrick was a chemist and data analyst essentially. And so really what this is back here is a big old chemistry set and everything.
The distilling process.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, and then
we're just into flammable liquids. That's really what it is.
And then this is just a huge regulatory, structure.
Oh man.
System. So our team really built itself out, and it's been really translatable from oil and gas to distillation.
And it's been important because all of the lives of all of the people here that are currently with us today translated fantastically into their current roles. So again, Amy was with a large marketing firm. She was able to use all of her skills to become our creative director. Robert owns commercial real estate throughout the Denver metro area.
He's also a general contractor. Which, if you're going to start a business, definitely make sure that you have a general contractor on your team.
It's super important. And then same thing with our beverage director, Adam, and his experience at bars and restaurants for the last decade or more. Maya, we were actually able to, she's our general manager. She does all of our events, our front of house operations management, and
setting up interviews.
Exactly. If you email me, I'll email you back. It just might be a couple months later, and I'll have to apologize for the delay.
Maya's our right hand man, and this business wouldn't be nothing without her.
And she was at Great Bite prior to this as well. So we really built. I think it's one of the most important things is building a team of which I would be terrible at Maya's position, and Robert's and Amy's and Meagan's, and so we all wear hats. Exactly. It's building a team where you don't have all the skill sets, right? Where everybody else can kind of fill in and help everything out. You want me making your whiskey, you don't want me making your cocktail. Garbage cocktail.
We just hired another part-time bartender named Nicole. We met earlier, and last night Patrick asked her to make his 13-minute old-fashioned. She's like, what's that? He's like, well, it's just a regular old-fashioned, but it takes Patrick 13 minutes to make it.
So I've got my own cocktail, and it's just a normal old-fashioned, but it just takes me, when I get behind the bar, I'm like, where's the simple syrup? It's a mess.
That's the great thing about owning a tasting room.
It is.
You make your own titles.
It's really nice.
You kind of hinted at it before. You guys are America's first single pot still distillery.
Yep.
kind of bring us on about what differs from single pot still distillation versus like what your, I guess, normal distillery distillation would be.
Sure. One of the biggest things, especially in the United States, is we don't use corn. It's 100% barley. And I kind of mentioned it before. We abide or self-regulate by the Irish whiskey technical file. And so there are three main highlights, a bunch of other underlining kind of subcategories of rules, but the three main rules and regulations are the use of malted and unmalted barley. Now you can't drop below 30% malted or unmalted barley, so there's a 30% minimum. You can make up 100% any way that you want, you just can't drop below that. So we're 50-50 unmalted and malted barley. There's also an allowance of 5% other grains, so rye, wheat, or oats would have been a common Irish grains that would have been used in old pot still whiskey. Like I said, we're in America's barley state. We grow lion's share of the barley. You have a Root Shoot shirt on. They're one of our barley providers as well. Just out of Loveland, we love those guys. But it's kind of Colorado's native or heritage grain, thanks to the Coors family. And so that first rule is that barley rule. So check that box. Yep. The second one, and I'm not sure if the camera can see to our right, is our mashing process. You have to do what's called Wart Separation or grain off distilling. So a lot of bourbon and rye whiskeys in the United States, the grain stays on through the mashing process, through fermentation into the stills. According to the technical file in Ireland, after the mashing process, you can only move wort and wash. So the grain must stay in the mash tun. The mash tun is then where we'll grain out. We've got that big grain trailer in the parking lot. All of our grain goes to our ranchers in Fort Lupton, about 45 minutes from the distillery to either become fertilizer or feed their cattle. So we have our boil kettle. We pasteurize that wort. That wort then gets put into our clean and sanitized stainless steel fermenters. So this is a brewery tour so far. It's really what we're doing. We don't add hops, but that wort we then pitch yeast into, and then 7 days later we have an 8% wash. That wash will then be moved into the third rule, right? Wart separation. Grains are gone. The liquid portion is then moved into that third rule, was that it must be distilled in copper pot stills. Now, the Irish would traditionally triple distill that because that unmalted barley, raw barley, really has a very heavy, dense, oily texture to it. When only double distilled, it can kind of be a very heavy element to the whiskey. So there's a few advantages of that third distillation. It lightens the body of the whiskey a little bit, lightens that oily context to it, but also rounds out the shoulders of the whiskey. It's not as sharp as some double distillations can be, especially in pot stills. And so that third distillation is kind of a hallmark of Irish whiskey, and something through our trials at the house adopted as well. We really could understand when tasting the distillate coming off the still, how that translated and how that third distillation was really an important part to our process. So thus the three stills behind us, each one having their own job. The wash still in the middle, the faint still or intermediate still, the second distillation to our left, and then to the right, the spirit still. And then in the corner, we have a separate gin still, since we have the gins out here today. Those gins are made in the exact same process, except in the third distillation, we add the botanicals in. The botanicals steep for 24 hours or macerate, kind of like a glorified tea in our spirit that's then distilled a third time. We keep botanicals out of our whiskey stills because it can taint your whiskey. You can get then whiskey, gin flavor, whiskey, a little extra something. Yeah, might be wonderful, but I'm not gonna chance that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of our process. Like I said, from falling in love with that in Ireland to creating this distillery, it is our one and only. That's all we do. No bourbons, no ryes, no other styles of traditional American whiskeys. It's fun though because this style of whiskey has a great sense of place in the United States, in Colorado, because of the natural grains that grow up here. And so we always talk about this style of whiskey bringing an American terroir to this old traditional style of Irish whiskey making. Terroir, of course, being that wonderful French word that means a sense of place and a taste of something. And so that's really, we're not trying to be an Irish whiskey, we're trying to be an American single pasta. And so that's kind of our heritage.
It's a good segue. Our name means,
Yeah.
Talnua means, new world. So bringing this old world style whiskey to the new world.
I left that out.
You look empty, so I'm going to open this for you.
There we go.
Love it.
I'll never say no. And then kind of to rewind, we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
You are also the president of Colorado.
Yeah, so I'm the president
Distillers
of
Guild?
Colorado Distillers Guild. So right now I believe that we have like 57 members, some of whom you have visited.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. How long have you been the president, and kind of how did you end up like in that position?
It's been like a year and a half. And
The best timing,
Yeah.
right at the beginning
Yeah.
of COVID, when we're all like, what do we do? Yeah, of
Let's
course.
test your abilities.
Yeah,
Shut down.
yeah, right.
Yeah. No, I've always sought out some sort of leadership roles, and being in the regulatory world, one of our board members is Stephen Gould from Golden Moon. He's our government affairs specialist for our guild, and he's been that for over 10 years. And he's great at it. And I ran against him like 2.5 years ago, and I did not win. But I'm very glad to not be doing that role. And then I ran for president and got it. So, to be clear, nobody else ran, but so volunteered.
I mean, a year and a half later, obviously, it's still working out for you.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And we've gotten, COVID gave us an opportunity to work with the other 3 guilds in our industry in Colorado. The wine guild, I'm sorry, Cassidy, I don't remember the name of it. It's called Cave. I don't remember what it stands for, but
Oh yeah.
and then the Brewers Guild and the Cider Guild. So through that, actually, in working with all of them, we have also created what's called the Liquid Arts Passport. And so you pay for a passport, and it offers.
Buy one, get one.
So that's the beautiful thing about it, is that every member was able to create whatever special that they wanted to. And then the money from that actually comes back to our guilds, as opposed to like the corporate-owned passports, which go to a corporation. This passport comes back to our guild, so it's kind of really nice. So we've been able to work together, and it's been great.
Cool. So if you're at a distillery, go pick one up so you can support it.
It's online. It's
online.
like a Liquid Arts Passport.
Gotcha.
And it's on your phone, which makes it super easy because it's not a physical
So
thing.
you
have to.
don't have an excuse not to get one.
Yeah.
Everybody who visits distilleries or breweries has Instagram. Somebody must have a phone, so you can download it. That's what you're saying.
It's perfect.
And then, so you guys are just featured on the summer edition of Whiskey Advocate. Which is obviously a huge deal, and is what I was telling you earlier, Meagan, is about why I wanted to come here to get you guys on my YouTube channel and all that stuff, just to spread awareness, because you guys are obviously killing it at
Thank you.
That was a delightful
innovating Colorado whiskey and that kind of thing. So you want to tell us like what that means to you to be featured?
I mean, Whiskey Advocate's been always one of my favorite publications. Learning the news. It's always our airport buy. I've always got one in my bag because it's always something we're grabbing at the airport. So to be featured as an American distillery that is making these kind of old Irish whiskey styles, and plus our picture was in there, and of course we were again sitting right here with the stills behind us. We already know you need a velvet couch instead of these chairs, which are actually
It was actually the couch that got featured.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you guys look good in it on the full page spread, but let's get real.
It was the
couch
velvet
was
couch.
like,
Boom.
boom.
Oh yeah. By the way, they make whiskey.
See this velvet couch, but we do.
Yeah.
I was joking with Patrick earlier too. Like we're traveling to Indy next weekend, and obviously we said it's our airport magazine buy, and I'm like, I'm gonna buy all of them off of the shelf and then go to one of the bars and be like, look, it's us.
This is me. Oh, whiskey advocate? No big deal. Yeah. But you guys were featured with 5 other distilleries, and 2 out of those 5 distilleries were from Colorado.
Yeah, Black Bear. So we talked about Stephen Gould earlier from Golden Moon. Shannon Jackson from Black Bear is also our communications director for our Colorado Distillers Guild as well. So
it's just cool, like another example of Colorado distilleries being featured in kind of innovation and product quality. It's really exciting to kind of be in this, I think, a new era of Colorado whiskey making, and again, always fun to be in with your friends.
And then in that spread, now that we can rewind since we had some camera issues.
Everything's great.
In that spread, you can see these beauties back here. Do you want to talk about like the names? And all
Yeah. So if you remember back to your Proto-Celtic and Norse mythology, if you were learned on that in school, the 3 sisters that weave the fates of all mankind, known as the Norns, or the Fates. Their names were Earth, U-R-T-H, Verthandi, and Skuld. Earth meaning the past or things that came before, Verthandi meaning the present or the now, and Skuld meaning the future or things yet to be. And so their names are translated into that, the past, the present, and the future. So directly behind me, you have Verthandi. No, I'm sorry, you have Earth. Earth is our wash still. To our left, here is Verthandi, our intermediate or faint still, and then Skull, our spirit still. So always kind of looking to the future as that spirit then goes on to barrels and then hopefully one day into your glass.
And then if you notice, we keep looking behind the camera. They just opened up for the day into their tasting room, so
it's fun
we're
to
getting
see.
a little distracted.
Smiling faces in there. People.
The whiskey's starting to hit a little bit too.
We're in a zoo window. And
There you go.
The more this flows, the more adventurous we get, right?
And then we kind of talked about it when you hinted at my Woot Shoot shirt. You guys are Colorado with an Irish twist, if you will, or heritage that you bring into it, but from basically seed to bottle, you guys are 100% Colorado. You want to talk about sourcing?
Yeah, absolutely. So grains are all from Colorado. 2 sources: proximity malt out of the San Luis Valley, and then root shoot out of the Loveland area as well. We use 100% pale 2-row malted barley and raw barley, all Genie species of barley. We use Alvarado Springs water to cut our spirit new make down to go into barrels, and then from barrels to bottle we use Alvarado Springs water, and then talked about our altitude earlier. That kind of distillery joke that we have is we're closer to the angels here, so they take a higher share. Our evaporation, our aging style, especially very different from Ireland, where it's 93, 94 degrees out right now while we have this fan on cooling us. And then our winters as well, again, below 0 at times. Very different than the Irish, much more temperate, where it's never more than 75, maybe 80 degrees, kind of the hottest time of the year, and then never really below 35, 40 degrees, so a much tighter window, a lot more humidity, where we're in this high altitude, arid climate with wild temperature swings. So very different aging that you get here as well. So a lot of the Colorado elements combine to create this whiskey, and arguably our native grain being barley as well too, which is part of the Colorado heritage.
Yeah. Cool. And then obviously you guys have been around since 2019, and you've taken off Whiskey Advocate, you're following that kind of thing. You guys just started, I'm going to mess it up again.
The Triskelion
Society.
I feel like, so I should just explain Triskelion. So Triskel, on our logo, should really have a reference, but on our logo, the ram is looking back towards the Triskel moon. And the Triskel is an ancient druid symbol is a symbol for living off of the land and the seasons, the tides of the seasons. And for us, it has two meanings. One for our triple distillation, and two for water, yeast, and barley that are the ingredients for whiskey, or at least our whiskey. And so called it the Triskelion Society, and so that is our loyalty club membership. We're launching it in July. There are a variety of cool benefits. It's like a $200 to $500 value, depending on how frequently you're here. But you get special release or early access to special releases, and then 15% off of your cocktails. And then an additional 5% off on Sundays, and I'll be bartending so that I can, see my Talnua family more often. Because I don't really bartend as much anymore. We just hired, another part-time bartender, so I'm super excited about that. And then a membership party every year, and little extra little things as well.
Which is fun. It's a way for us to really build the community, something that's so important in Irish culture is the hospitality and building that community. And times community was all you had, and so very important for us to be able to kind of put a name to it and put a group together of people that we get to see and get to know. There's already been some faces who have signed up that we don't know yet, which is amazing. Again, today, welcome to our community as well. Our first time getting to meet you in person, and so it's just always an important part of the culture that we came from, but also the culture that we're building moving forward. So, and you can find out about it on our website as well. But as a segue, you can purchase the membership on the website, and it's kind of a limited, while supplies last type of deal, because we want to keep it intimate, and then we'll grow that from there. This is kind of our first foray into building a society.
It's like you knew I was going to ask.
Yep, I know, right? It's crazy. It's like
So you get a discount from the lineup for joining the society. So let's jump into the lineup.
Let's do the lineup. So I always start with a blended whiskey. The blended whiskey is going to be our house-made single pot still, blended with whiskey that comes from the Cooley Distillery in Ireland. It's a grain whiskey made and distilled out of French maize in their column stills, and then aged in ex-bourbon casks, where our pot still is made out of Colorado barley, that 50-50 malted and unmalted barley mash bill, triple distilled in our pot stills, and then aged in virgin American white oak. So a nice bit of that warm pot still spiciness on that virgin American white oak with that grain whiskey, that the French maize doesn't have the same kind of corn flavor as American yellow sweet corn, and so it's kind of a different beast, a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter, plays really well. This is going to drink a lot like a Jameson Powers Gold Label. The second,
Can't not mention Talnua.
I know, it's true, it's very true. The second is our
Which has gotten oddly low.
It's getting lower. I don't know.
It started here, and now it's down here.
It's fine. It's fine. That's in the bubble. That's in the bubble. That's not even like volume is irrelevant until it hits the side. That is our really kind of our flagship current single pot still. Again, that 50-50 malted nut malted barley, triple distilled in our copper pot stills, then aged in virgin American white oak for a minimum of 18 months, much closer and over 2 years from now. That is then put into our Solera system, known as our Continuum cask. So that Continuum cask, as it was filled with whiskey over 2 years old, is emptied for bottling. We then add new casks into that Solera system. So as whiskey leaves, it's never completely emptied and new whiskey is added on top. Thus the age is getting older and older and older as it sits in that cask, and new barrels, new entrants into that cask are happening all the time. Now it's kind of interesting because again, the chemistry law of miscibility, there will always be whiskey from the original drops that entered that cask present in there. So it changes throughout time. It'll be one of those things that ages and develops in its own unique way. Our Old Saints Keep special release. This is our, every year on St. Patrick's Day, we release a special whiskey. They're one-offs, they're completely unique, never to be made again. This was our 2-year-old whiskey aged in virgin American white oak. Again, that single pot still, mash bill and triple distilled, malted and malted barley, then finished in Amontillado and Pedro Jimenez sherry casks that are then blended together. So a nice bit of that sweetness coming from the Pedro Jimenez sherry, and that nutty, warm note that comes from that Amontillado as well.
And that's wine.
Yeah, sherry wine casks, exactly.
Some of that like dark fruit notes, plum.
Yeah, dry fruit
apricot.
note. Yep. So coming out of southern Spain is where the bodega is. And then, of course, our gins as well. We chatted about this previously, being an insurance policy. I like to be transparent. Is that when we opened the distillery, we didn't know if the whiskey was going to be ready or not. We actually were able to open with not this exact, but two anthologies ago of a different single pot still, Old Saints Keep. But the gin also has an Irish heritage. If you know the Irish flag, green, white, orange. Green is the Catholic South, orange the Protestant North, and white is the promise of peace between the two. It's called the United Irishman flag. That orange in that flag comes from King William of Orange, who took the throne from King James and brought Dutch Genevieve to the Irish people, the King's drink. And so gin, especially in Ireland now, because Ireland has a 3-year barrier to entry to be called whiskey. Thank God we live in the good old USA, and we've got our 2-year-old straight American whiskey that we've got to hang our hat on. That gin has a heritage in Ireland because it also helps younger distilleries open, build revenue, and build interest and intrigue. And so it's something that we were excited to bring into our heritage as well. Our botanicals for that, again, very transparent, are juniper, coriander, cardamom, Irish heather, orris root, lemon peel, and orange peel. Can't not have orange peel in a gin that has that orange heritage to it, right? So it plays much more like a Dutch Genevieve because it's triple distilled in our copper pot stills. Again, those botanicals being aged, macerated in that third distillation, 24 hours prior. We then bring those botanicals up to a boil and capture that distillate off. So a lot like our moonshine with botanicals in it. Then the only difference between our two gins here is one is barrel aged, and that barrel aging adds a nice woody vanilla caramel note to it, and also has the beautiful thing that oak does is round out the spirit and make it a little bit more gentle, but it has its own robust nature in its own right, great for Negronis and mules, and fun cocktail program.
So I also call it like a gateway to gin because it sips more like a whiskey. So So if you're not a fan of gin, but you're a fan of whiskey, you want to get into gin, then this is a great segue into
totally.
gins.
Or if you're not a gin guy at all, like me.
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
I tell you what, though, I didn't like gin until we made this particular gin. The barrel aged
sure.
gin.
I'm sure.
Man, most of them are just
Specifically.
very piney and pungent, right? And people don't drink gin neat.
Right.
It's a very rare occasion. It's really meant to be a cocktail drink, and so the fun thing that we've seen here is that people really like it. Stands on its own, especially the barrel aged stuff. But even the clear gin over a nice big rock chills that down. It's a great summer sessionable, and again plays well into all your traditional kind of gin cocktail drinks.
It is 92 proof, so it's not actually sessionable, but
It's got a little bit. It's got a little bit of heat.
so you guys
Yeah,
earlier, these two are 86 proof. This is 90, and then the two gins are 92 proof.
And then obviously this lineup is badass and delicious. And you guys just submitted for some awards. You're going to tell us about which awards you submitted to and why.
Yeah, the two. I've always been much more of. I want to know what the public thinks of it. The public is also unkind if they don't like something, and so we knew early on if we weren't going to be, if it wasn't going to be the right thing, they would let us know, and we've gotten such a warm review and warm welcome through our public channels. This year we decided to kind of go into our first competitions. ADI, the American Distilling Institute, and the American Craft Spirits Association. We are members as well, and we chatted over there a bit while we were filling barrels about them kind of those associations carrying forth like the agenda of craft spirits in the United States. It's also a mechanism for them to do a lot of fundraising. Plus, they pull in high-level judging talent that will give you professional tasting notes and reviews. And so we're really excited. I believe the release dates for those submissions are at the conferences in August and December. ADI in August, ACSA in December. And so it'll be really kind of fun to kind of see where we stand, on a more professional tasting level. And then next year we might go into some others as well. It's always, we don't have a category in the United States, so at some level too, it'll be cool to enter competitions against our Irish colleagues and compatriots that make this style of whiskey as well. So that originally made this style of whiskey, I should note. And so it's kind of exciting that the future is upon us.
Also nerve-wracking.
It's very nerve-wracking. It's so nerve-wracking. It really is.
I mean, obviously, like with the society you guys have, how much you've grown and everything in the past 2 years. I mean, I'm pretty sure you're gonna take some medals home for sure.
Thanks, man.
It'd be really special for us. That's for sure. I mean, there's always a bit of pride in this business and that. I mean, I can't tell you our biggest thing. I mean, this has always been our dream to do this together, but it's always fun when people like your dream.
So we just got done talking about awards.
Yeah.
Is there anything, you guys got some cool stuff coming out that you want to tease?
I do. Meagan is ready for us here. So the first I'll talk about is we're hitting really a hallmark here of 3-year-old whiskeys that are coming out this year with a minimum of 3 years old. A hallmark because in Ireland, whiskey can be considered whiskey, like I mentioned just prior to this, until it's 3 years old. So we have a virgin white oak cask. So this is an American white oak charred cask. So a whiskey aged like a bourbon would be, but with that kind of that Irish distilling heritage and tradition with it as well. So really kind of exciting that the virgin oak has been a part of what we've been doing since day one, especially with the Continuum cask and even what has come previously through our Old Saints Keep program, but it maturing to 3 years old in those 53-gallon, 200-liter casks is really going to be a special kind of part of really tying that Gaelic tradition, meeting that American pioneerism in whiskey aging. Our second cask and stave is an experimental line. This experimental line is a really, actually, I didn't say this previously, it was my little sister's idea. She's a wine broker, and we were talking about the way that wines are aged, where casks are used for a decade or more, and they'll introduce new oak to build an oak profile into that cask, so the cask is a vessel. This is our experimental line using ex-bourbon casks, where we introduce different oak profiles into those casks to build a unique whiskey taste and whiskey oak profile. So a very unique aging profile or aging program, where we introduce those staves at the beginning, as soon as the new make enters that ex-bourbon cask. The oak profile of different chars, toast, French oak, American white oak are introduced into the cask, then removed and then aged for a minimum of an additional 3 years as well. So going to be kind of cool to see what we can do and achieve from an oak profile that is not traditionally achievable in a single cask.
So you're doing this from the beginning as opposed to
at the end, right? So not finishing with staves, starting that out, right? So that oak profile is built from the ground up, day one of the 18th culture. Then, what I'm also really excited about is our peated cask. So these two are going to come out in July. Packaging pending, of course. We're waiting on that to get the exact release date. Again, Triskelion Society, you'll know first. This peated cask, we're ahead of the ball game here. We'll release this on Halloween. This is going to be our American single pot still, again aged in those virgin American white oak casks, and then finish in Lefroy casks. And that finishing period is close to a year on those. So a long time spent to soak up that Scottish peat influence to it. It's something that we did originally with our quarter cask in 2019 at Halloween. And so it's that perfect time of year to get that rich, smoky element, that nice kind of fall and winter taste profile built into here. So it's going to be a lot more subtle than Lefroy, because it's obviously just pulling the essence out of the barrel. It's not going to be that good old Lefroy.
If you've had Lefroy, it gets
punch
out.
in the face.
Yeah. So the only peat is coming from the barrel.
Right.
There's no peated malt or anything.
Yeah. So it's another kind of aging cask profile. I love the color on that one too. It's it just has that, evokes that kind of peat bog and moss as well. So an exciting, fun lineup that we're moving through the end of the year, and many more to come as well.
Cool. And then, speaking of this lineup, where can you find it?
Are you sure?
Okay. So we're pretty much in the Denver metro area, because I am our salesperson / delivery driver. There's an Amazon delivery driver driving up right now. They have a much wider spread than we do.
I was going to say, you should ask them. You should ask him to deliver.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
But you can find where we are on our website. So how to find us, where to find us.
And then, obviously, you guys have your website. Where else can we find you? Social media.
Social media wise, at Talnua Distillery on Instagram and on Facebook as well. So really where we make a lot of our big announcements and kind of keep up with the activities at the distillery. That's our main avenues. Always find us at our website as well. And then everybody's always welcome here at the distillery. It's something that we really love seeing, friendly faces here, a full cocktail lounge and flights available here at the distillery. Plus, we have these windows here right in front of us, so you'll get this view as well, so you can see us real time if we're brewing and distilling. You kind of get to see us through the zoo windows as well. So, yeah.
We're open Tuesday through Sunday. Tuesday through Friday we are 3 to 9. Saturday noon to 9, and Sunday noon to 7.
Sweet. All right.
Well, cheers, my friend.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks for having me.
I know, last little bit, yeah.
Sláinte.
Remember to follow Colorado Spirits Collective on YouTube so you can watch this video. Instagram, and then Facebook. Stay tuned for some epic giveaways and whatnot. So thanks for tuning in.
Cheers. Cheers, everybody.
What's up, guys? This is Matt with Colorado.
Just frogging up straight out. Dude, you got it over with. Now it's done. It's great, dude. It's happening, bro. This is like, this is real life. This is real life.
This is actually how like Talnua operates.
Yeah. Oh, what?